Hey everybody, welcome back to Ready Steady Play, where we're just doing a quick rundown of what we thought about the cooperative campaign mode of the Edge Dawnfall, which is the Darkness stretch goals. Of course, they can be played in many different formats. As I said at the beginning of this show, you can play solo against the Darkness, you can play against a player playing the Darkness, you can play skirmish against the Darkness and play that both ways. You can play a campaign against the Darkness, although I don't think you can play the campaigns player versus Darkness player. You must play those against the Darkness AI, but then you can play those solo or co-op as well. And the campaigns come in long-term campaigns with stickers you run on a track to track these sort of like long ongoing things, or they come in mini campaigns where you don't need to track them with stickers and you can just kind of remember whether you completed optional objectives in the previous mission for bonuses.
Yes.
And if that sounds like a lot of options, it is.
Yeah. I mean, would you like to reiterate which ones they were?
I'd rather not. Fortunately, you can just scrub back if you want to hear them again. But what we can do is talk a bit about this. So this was one of the mini campaigns. So that means we're not running on one of the campaign tracks or putting down stickers. What we are doing is playing these there's five possible scenarios, but they branch. So you go 1 to 2 or 3, then back to 4, and then to 5. And based on whether you completed optional objectives in mission 1, will determine whether you go to 2 or 3. And then based on whether you completed optional objectives in the one you play next, you might have bonuses or disadvantages in 4 and 5. And then once you get to the end, if you succeed, you will get extra the happy ending. And if you don't succeed, you'll get the sad ending. And
Which
of course,
tends to be everybody dies.
It tends to be everybody dies, and it says restart the campaign. So you can also pick which faction you want to be, and you can decide whether to run it solo or co-op. If you're playing co-op, you can be different factions, but you'll be able to gain more synergy benefits from being two. But from being the same faction. But then if you pick 2, you might be able to find some wacky combos with the units from 2 different armies.
Yeah, I mean, very much the case of shenanigans with time travel. That's just so much fun.
Yeah, we really just found the most broken things about Razak and tried to exploit them based on the fact that there were 2 of us having 2 Razak turns a turn. So, for example, and this is sort of going to lead me into a greater point about this mode, actually. But, I mean, the first thing I'll say, just, in summary, before we get into the nitty-gritty, I quite enjoyed this.
I did. Those did as well.
I thought that it took us quite a long time to arrive at it. As 2 people who know how to play the skirmish mode well, it took us quite a long time to figure out how this works. And that's because it sort of says, take what you do normally and then make these changes about it if you're going to play a Darkness skirmish mode.
Yeah.
But then if you're playing a campaign, take those other 2 modes, take some of the rules from both, and then also make these changes. And it becomes very difficult to track which rules you should be following from each of the other sections and which rules have been superseded by the special scenario rules.
Yeah.
So that's a criticism. But once we actually got there, I quite enjoyed it.
I have to admit, I feel like the effort they went into of not replicating the instructions, all that managed to do was make it more difficult for us to figure out which ones we're applying.
But imagine the printing costs of printing more rulebooks, right?
No, yeah, but even if it was just on the start of the campaign page and it just says, you do this, specific exceptions outlined here, I'd have been more happy with, because we only really had to do it twice. Once for realising we'd not taken an endurance away, and then realising how things spawn in.
Mm-hmm. But I think our mistakes in the game were actually symptomatic more of us being sort of fatigued from trying to jump around the rules. And it's about tracking in your brain, because what you really want to be doing is focusing on the game, right? You want to be focusing on how you're going to beat the Darkness AI. And so because we were then having to focus on implementing the Darkness AIs correctly and focusing on where all those rules were, and we did have to go back and do a lot of checking. A good example is when we put down the 2 Darkness crystal sources on the board here, it was quite ambiguous about whether or not we should place the other 2 crystal sources as well.
For a standard game.
Yeah, so it did have a rule that said put these down, but it didn't say only these, right? And it didn't say misstep 12 from the original rulebook, which is place 4 crystal sources on the board. So that was quite ambiguous, and there was a lot of ambiguity, actually. And that leads me into this point about the shadowing, right? Which I think kind of sums up this. Because what it says on this card is, in each Razek active turn, you may activate this squad in addition to your regular activation. Well, there are 2 Razek active turns if Ollie and I both take an active turn. However, I do not have a regular activation in his turn. So this card could be read both ways. And if you read rules as read, there's no way of knowing which is the correct way of ruling it. And that is something that is felt, I think, when you're playing these other game modes in the Edge Dawnfall, because there are, like, you heard me run them down at the start. There are a lot of different ways to play this. This is just the Darkness Stretch Goals content, right? This is just this little box here that came with that enormous box. So there is so many different ways to play this that they've got to incorporate into this, and they can't possibly make it all sort of sync together very with the synchronicity you would get in a game that just had one game mode, right? That was just sort of one self-contained thing. Yeah,
and just to add on to your point, these 2 cards, which were other ones we'd used, so the backstab ability and the move for free, we didn't actually use the backstab in the end because I was using the energy beam, because I wanted to use that sodding energy beam. But these worded differently. It's with a Razak squad. A Razak squad.
So that, and then there's one I had as well that was said, do your thing.
Yes.
And then that was quite, so some of the cards couldn't be interpreted ambiguously.
Yeah.
While others could. But
it's funny because some of them clearly have been worked on a bit more than others, but it only becomes a problem when you've got these different modes of play. In a normal game, the difference in wording is irrelevant. So it might be that it was they wrote the wording down, and then when they've had this additional gameplay mode, they just didn't quite have the ability to tighten the language up.
Well, and also, I mean, if you look at some of these cards, like you just don't want the card. I mean, this card's already got quite a lot of text on it, and you don't want them to be a wall of text. And you don't want cards that say like, except if you're playing in co-op campaign mode, and then it does something else. That would just be not feasible. So the way that the fact that they've implemented all of these different ways of play and done it, and it's still enjoyable.
It works.
So it functions, and it didn't feel outrageously broken either. So that is very positive.
Yeah, and to be honest, the way that the AI deck's constructed, as we said in the game, we've got a huge pile of cards. I mean, these are the cards we didn't use.
Just for the ones we're playing with.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we got unlucky with the amount of ones for there, but there's nothing to stop a bad shuffle. Every single card's for her.
How many cards are there per squad?
Oh, they're all different. It's not a standard number. But one of them had 10, one of them had 20.
So the way the game setup instructs you to do is take the cards for every single unit that's present on the darkness side, shuffle them all together and take a number off the top. So you don't know if one of their squads is going to be activating all the time or very infrequently.
I mean, look at the difference in the size of the deck.
Yeah, so these are the cards we could have played with but didn't. And these are the cards we did play with. So if you put them all together, this is the total number of cards, and we use either 16 or 12 from that deck.
Yeah, I think if we'd have had to do 2 more turns,
we could possibly could have
the way it was going, but with the risk of whatever those top 4 cards were, that could have just been all her. And that's the thing. It makes for a very varied gameplay, but if you get a bit unlucky with the shuffle, you're going to be feeling it.
As with the other forms of the Edge Dawnfall, I keep wanting to call it the Edge Darkness because we've been playing with the Darkness.
I thought you were going to call it the Darkfall.
There is going to be a benefit to players who've played before.
Yes.
There's going to be, and actually I think that if you're playing in the co-op mode, fortunately, you can share your experience if you've played before others. However, it is very open to the possibility of alpha gaming, or what you might find, which was unfortunate, is that I was able to assemble the power combo, and because of the way we worked out turn order, and I do think you should be able to change your turn order between A and B.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is...
It would give you a more interesting decision, but... what I was just going to say was that because we'd sort of set up this combo of time jump and the banner, and then because I also had the shadowing ability on here, it just made sense for us to do it that way. And unfortunately, that meant you spent a lot of the game just kind of sitting there being the battery.
Well, yeah, but I mean, partly, I had the same set of cards in my deck trying to get that, and I had the reposition, the shrine, I had the backstab laser whip, I had the energy beam, I had the mine layer. I built the deck knowing I was probably going to be taking the passive turns, and we discussed it before the game. So, and I was kind of prepared to be the guy that had to do that, because that banner combination is so powerful.
And also because the passive turn flips the darkness back to...
Yeah.
And this is, again, maybe a symptom of the fact that there's so many different game modes. But because the passive turn is what swaps the darkness cards back from their dark side to their basic side...
You need to do a passive turn basically every turn.
Exactly, but, if you're in the co-op mode, you have the benefit of being able to do that.
Yeah.
Player A can take a passive turn, weaken all of the enemy units, and then player B can step in and start curb stomping them, right?
Which is why you had all the melee guys and the shooting guys.
But if you were playing solo, you wouldn't have those same opportunities. Yeah. So you'd have to think of other ways around that, because you'd take a passive turn, and then the darkness would have a go and have the opportunity to stick some more back into dark mode.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious as to how single player works on that, because almost all of the cards, in fact, I think all of the normal unit cards have the you turn dark, and as we saw with the imposter, they get to attack. Oh, that's quite handy. Got all three of them. So with the imposter, you change to dark mode, and then you go straight into combat.
Yeah,
there is no difference. Whereas with the shadow,
they combat in dark mode first, if they're in dark mode, and then change to dark mode afterwards.
Yeah. And they can't attack if they spawn that turn. And again, with the Void Spectre, combat in dark mode except models spawned by this card. And then it changes to dark mode after the combat.
So the imposters can basically sort of spawn and then attack straight away.
Yeah, just rip you a new one.
Whereas the Shadows and the Void Spectres need a couple of turns to set it up. Yeah. And that's based on whether or not their cards come out. And so, but I mean, it's good that the different units have different behaviors, and then you can learn those behaviors. Because that means when we see the imposters come out, we're like, oh, deal with that.
Although we had a bit of the shock with the Shadow, where all of a sudden it becomes an imposter. That was
some of the Shadow. So there's a secondary ability on all of these cards that's triggered in addition to the behavior, and one of the Shadow's abilities is just turn into an imposter.
Yeah. Although again, we got lucky with that Void Spectre not proccing. Mm-hmm. That was worrying.
But I still like the basic mechanics of the Edge Dawnfall. Move around, do an attack, roll some dice. I still really like this initiative consideration as well. Yeah. I like the debuffing stuff. So I do like that it can be played solo and it can be played co-op.
Yeah.
I would like to see... I would... If there were some person out there who created cheat sheets to remember all the exceptions to the rules in order to implement the co-op mode or even just the AI mode, that would be so helpful.
Yeah. I mean, I find it funny. One of the things that I've noted about this game is I think all of the different factions have an ability to debuff in some way. Mm-hmm. And in this mode especially, the debuffs are key. With the demon faction, we set you on fire or we freeze you or we stun you, that'd be great for this, because you're just constantly throwing off the debuffs. This debuff that we could move and your static shock one.
Oh yeah, the shock on the... I mean, these guys are basically sort of like a support debuff role, and they're just great. I mean, they can also do the AoE attack, which is also really good.
Yeah.
But they have a lot of utility. They're a bit of a utility unit because they can't really do much in the normal conventional sense because their stat line's so bad. Mm. But I really like that unit a lot.
But they do also have the good move to get around, because that's... Yeah. I mean, that's something I noted with the Dverga, that they don't have great movement to start with, and when they then move into firing mode, it gets worse. Mm. These guys are kind of the exception to that. They're terrible in every form of combat, but they only want to be shooting.
But they don't...
I mean, their stats aren't great regardless.
But they just die so fast in this mode in the competitive game because people see them and they go, oh no, it's those things, and then just murder them.
Well, it's because you stun lock them. Otherwise, you debuff them and stun lock them. But debuff and AoE them. Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like you just end up nuking the crap out of them.
Ideally, yeah, but I mean, they are a bit glass cannony in that respect. I mean, on the other hand, your opponent might be like, "Oh, you've used all your cards; you can't do anything useful with them," which is true.
Yeah, but I mean, the counter to that is the Master of Elements, which is the demon version. There's only one guy. You get two at least.
But they're even more useful in the cooperative mode because we have, to an extent, I mean, obviously their initiative 1 makes them vulnerable because enemies prioritize low initiative characters, but because we have some control over where the enemies go, we can sort of help mitigate some of their weaknesses as well and keep them alive for a bit longer. I
mean, I like the way that the AI is described, where it's like, you do these things, and clearly you can't just say, oh, walks off the edge of a cliff and falls to their death.
Well, that'd be terrible, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I like that they've gone to the effort of saying, these are the priorities they have. They will only not obey them if it's impossible for them to follow it normally. So they won't walk through a debuffing terrain if they can go around it. They won't go into a mine if they can go around it. But it might be, well, the only way for you to get to the lowest initiative creature is through that. So they've got to do it. Because they've worked out how to sort of allow the players to manipulate the terrain while also not making the game very stupid. Mm-hmm. I've played games with the AI and it just felt really dumb. This actually... Every card was something that could potentially swap the balance of the game. And, I mean, it's just that scary Empress.
Oh, yeah, the fact that she can just enter Apocalypse mode and then end the game in 3 turns. But that's actually really cool. Like, I actually really like that. I mean, I don't know, I think this could be sort of a bit more of a turn-off for people.
I thought we were going to struggle a lot more to kill her. And yeah, we got it down to the wire.
But it was only clever debuffs, and that's sort of linking back to what I was saying earlier about having to know the game. Like, if we didn't bring the thing the card that moves the shrine, if we didn't have the shock from the Stormbringers, if we didn't know to bring those debuffs, then we could have actually found ourselves in a position where we almost certainly couldn't have damaged her.
Yeah.
And that would have been a big problem because we would have been throwing all of our hits into her trying to stop this death clock.
Yeah.
And enemies would have been spawning and attacking us and murdering us as well.
I mean, that's the reason I had those 2 cards in, because it's a 1-cost energy cloud. The fact that it was also a 1-cost potential backstab was kind of just the cherry on top.
Well, the surfers are very useful because they're quite versatile and they have lots of different things that they can do.
High speed, a good attack and defense buff, and initiative 2 is surprisingly useful.
Yeah, they're just kind of very solid across the board, really.
Yeah, I mean, initiative 3 even.
Yeah,
but I didn't actually need to. I could have upgraded them, but
not upgraded them, swapped them. I mean,
activated
it's just kind of a different mode, really.
Yeah,
so they have a much higher initiative, but then their attack sucks.
Yeah, and in this particular case, there was no reason to do it.
Yeah.
And also, they became the sacrificial fodder to keep your useful guys alive. I did end up being basically the battery in the tank, didn't I? I got punched in the face, dropped off the face of the earth, and then doing passive turns.
You were kind of the battery in the tank for this one, yeah.
Yeah.
But it might work out differently in the next game. It was charged by
kinetic energy. Every time you punched me in the face, I got a little bit of charge.
But one of the things that was but going back to I wanted to mention some of the inconsistencies. Yeah. For example, in the first game, the first scenario in this campaign we played, it said, use the basic side of the game board.
Yeah.
In the scenario-specific setup rules. Now, when we played scenario 3, which was this one, it didn't say anything about the game board.
No.
So then I went back to check the generic rules, the generic setup rules for campaigns, didn't mention the game board at all. So then I went to check the rules for the solo AI Darkness skirmish game, which you have to reference because that's the only area that tells you how to use the AI for the Darkness anyway. So, there are rules from that section that are relevant to all of the rest of the Darkness AI stuff. And I think because they wanted to keep the book short, because it's so thick anyway.
Yeah,
the Stretch Goals book is so thick anyway. There are also sections of these rules where they don't have Like, for example, they've got all these pictures of the AI cards, but what they don't have is pictures of the squad cards. They've just got this little bit of text here.
Yeah.
So that's a bit confusing. But the other thing is here, then it just says you can use either board side.
Yeah, and one of them, I mean, the difference is the other side of this, the underside, that area is blocked off, which for a campaign makes sense because they don't have full freedom. So it restricts how they can get to you. I mean, there's a couple of times I thought, if, say, that area had been blocked off or that area had been blocked off, maybe it wouldn't have happened quite the same way.
But it's interesting that it does leave you sort of wondering whether you're doing it correctly a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean...
The way this is sort of laid out with these different sections, and it's like, well, wait a minute, this is the skirmish solo mode against the darkness, and I'm taking some rules from that, and now I'm just going to make sure that I'm doing it correctly by double-checking the rules for implementing a campaign and my scenario-specific setup rules to make sure there's nothing that's superseded this that I've missed. And what winds up happening is you check those three areas, and then if it doesn't reference what you want at all, then you go back to the original rulebook, and you're like, well, I guess I just do this.
Yeah.
And that's... that can make it quite challenging to actually get this started. But once you get it started, it's fairly straightforward, although there are a lot of ambiguities, and I do think you just kind of have to use your best sort of interpretation.
The fact is, you sometimes you have to go, well, I think it does this, and I can't come up with a reason why it wouldn't. And sometimes, as you see, you end up doing a backseat. Hopefully the decision you've made doesn't swing it too far away. Like, everything we did was very easily recoverable.
Yeah, that's true. And that's one of the benefits, I think, of like sort of a co-op mode that's against the AI. You
don't feel like you've got an unfair advantage because you go, well, I'll just mechanically undo that, and then whatever can stand will stand.
Yeah, because there's no plays where it's sort of like, oh, surprise, gotcha.
Yeah, or there's no, oh, you made me waste doing this because X. I mean, if you waste something in this mode, you just got to moan at the partner who did the dice, and then you both go, well, actually, neither one of us got that right. It's less arguments than if it was competitive.
So it's, but, I did enjoy this. I mean, what I think I would say in summary, though, is that I would like to play the next scenario.
Yes, I would like to too.
I would like to see if we can continue to win against the darkness and succeed at this mini campaign. So I think that is sort of a testament to its success in implementing this, despite the fact that this is like, a sort of a side version of like a fourth game mode.
Yeah. That
was a stretch goal,
It does make me laugh. I think Michael would like to play this once he's fully comfortable with the rules.
Michael really struggles to get his head around all of the cards and the deck building aspect, the preliminary deck building aspect of this game.
I mean, I think once because this is the thing, it's a lot to go into, but it is quite fun to do, and you start.
Well, you and I like that, I mean, if you remember, him building his chapter deck for our three-way game, I basically just built it for him because he just doesn't like looking for those kinds of card combos. Which is what we enjoy about that.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun looking like, oh, I can do this, and I can do this, and then this will proc this.
And one of the fun things about playing against the AI as well is that you can look for those outrageously broken things, and you don't have to stop and worry, and you don't have to stop and think about, is this going to make the game for my opponent just totally miserable?
Yeah. No, that's true. I mean,
so it's like I can just do all these outrageously broken combos and feel clever and smug and not worry about ruining someone's day. So that's fun, because that a part of the fun of this deck building stuff in this game is sort of finding those wombo combos.
Yeah, but it's a fun game, and it's got so many different modes. There's kind of guaranteed to be something for everyone, almost.
Yes. I think it's the kind of game that really is a good. You're going to get the most out of it if you can enjoy all these different types of game mode. I mean, I actually think that the skirmish mode is fun because the thing is, and this is what I keep coming back to, is the price tag on this box is about £150, which is. I mean, when there's so many games out now,
like 11 games in this game.
Yeah, exactly. That are £150. So if you're willing to sort of put up with some of these ambiguities, you get an enormous amount of mileage for that money.
Yeah, I struggle to think of a similar game where you get this amount of stuff, and not even just mechanically the way the game's been constructed. I love these models. I think they're absolutely amazing. The sculpt is great. I kind of wish that you would paint them, but I know for a fact you'd farm that out to me, and I'm not good enough.
But
Well,
it's not that you're not good enough. It's that you would take forever to do one.
Oh, there's a dig there.
Oh, you told me you were slow.
I am a slow painter.
Yeah, I'm still waiting for you to do our 2 models for Legacy of Dragonholt.
Hey, it's on a list, okay? It's on a list.
Bump it up. Bump it up the list.
I would, but every weekend I'm here. And weekday now. But I love the models. They are amazing. They are so detailed. I can't think of just an equivalent game that had those kind of models. You would have paid more than £150 just to get them. You wouldn't have a game. Just the models would be that.
Mm.
And I would have paid that. I'm not going to lie. Try and tell me that's not an amazing sculpt. Try and tell me that that's not a great sculpt. It's just the amount of effort that went into this is mind-boggling.
Yeah, it really is. It really is a sort of a unique thing, and it's so surprising because we see these Kickstarter campaigns all the time, and they regularly run up to 100 or 100 and something pounds. I mean, and this costs less than the. I think the. Well, to be fair, actually, the comparable stuff is like Cool Mini or not, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the thing is that I have nothing against tokens. There's a lot of games we've played where you just get tokens on the table and. Fine, it works. It's exactly what you need to play the game, and you could play this game with tokens. There's nothing that says you have to have the models.
Well, the game's designer, his previous design was called Nurishima Hex, which you may or may not know, which involves putting tokens down on. It's a post-apocalyptic game, skirmish game, where you're putting tokens down on a hex grid, and then when the grid is full, the sort of combat triggers, or you can trigger it preliminary using cards and stuff, but whatever. The point is that then all the tokens kind of do interactions, and if you've sort of successfully put them down, all of yours will be left and your opponents will be gone. And if you've not, then, the
Shenanigans.
Shenanigans, exactly. But you can see how that hex-based combat in that game has sort of inspired the hex-based combat in this game. But Nurishima Hex would be, in my opinion, a lot less. Because it can be quite difficult to approach for some people who find complex visuals overwhelming. And if you had big plastic models, or the whole game was just scaled up and bigger, it might be less visually imposing. Because the board is not huge, because all the tokens have a lot of intricacies on them. Yeah. And you can't, because they're not models, they're just little tokens with pictures on. It's hard to, you're sort of trying to take in all this visual information and all this creative, and sort of still imagine this creative situation that's going on.
Yeah.
And that can be quite overwhelming for some people playing that game. Whereas with this, because we've got these models here and the world is represented in a sort of a 3D dynamic way, you're doing less mental work imagining what's happening and sort of enjoying the cinematic nature of it more.
Yeah, I agree. The models are a plus, but depending on you more than anything, that can make a game so much more fun, because instead of it being, my little paper token is doing this to your paper token, it
just allows more people to become immersed in it.
Monster is having a fight with that guy.
Yeah, exactly. And it allows people, it just means that it's more immersive for more people.
It's also kind of more cinematic. It makes it easier for you to imagine what's going on, and that's kind of how you get dragged into the game. Is it goes down to that critical roll where you've spent the red die and you rolled a 5, and that's exactly what you needed. And anything less than that would have been terrible. You got it. And it just makes you care a little bit more, I think.
But we still couldn't find but coming back to it, we still couldn't find the dark source tokens, crystal source tokens. Yeah. It says that they're on the other side of these, but I just don't get it. I defied you to tell me that one side of these is darker than the other. So we actually took what are called secondary shadow gates, whatever they're used for, we don't know, and we just put them on top of the crystal sources. Yeah. And it served the same purpose, but, it's just, again, it's one of those little things where it's like, and one of the mistakes we made in the original playthrough, I don't know, I think we might have corrected it for the one game with Michael, but certainly in our first game, we had the first player token, and we were using the time token, which is for the campaigns, instead of the actual first player token, which looks completely different. So
no one noticed.
Because there's so much tokens and so many game modes, it is very easy to make those kinds of mistakes, and so it does ask you So in the price you pay for having so many game modes at such a good cost is that you have to do more work to sort of set it up and remember what is what. I mean, now, it doesn't always matter, but then sometimes it does.
Yeah, there was a few times where we were like, oh, and this thing happens. What does that look like? And what does it do?
Yeah.
But there's too much going on for you to have that as perfect recall. I mean, maybe him. You are a rules encyclopedia hidden inside a whack at times.
It's all temporary memory. I'll go and do a brain dump after this and forget it all.
But there are times when you're going to have to look at the character sheet again. You're going to have to look for where the rule says this one bit. Because, I'm not going to lie, from the picture alone, I would not have called that a wisdom token. I would have expected that to have done something horrible to me.
Yeah, but this is in fact a wisdom token that increases the stat line of all the darkness creatures that belong to the squad it's positioned on. So
yeah,
there you go.
It's a lovely bit of artwork. I would not have guessed that's what it did. But that's almost why would you expect the artwork to be that representative? That's
a passive token that indicates a passive ability has been activated and will be ongoing for the rest of the game.
Yeah. The thing is, once you know that, you remember that.
Yeah.
It's also on the card, so it helps.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I really liked this game. Yeah. I want to keep playing. I want to know how our campaign goes. I want to know, does she come back for revenge having gone, you killed me
she's
twice?
Gone into the town hall and she's eating all the townsfolk to regain her strength.
No, but I'm trying to think of, is she going to actually rip us a new one because we've killed her twice now?
Oh, that will be decided by,
popular vote.
No, our efforts, we'll have to see. We'll have to see whether or not we can pull off another win.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to do 2 more wins because there's 2 more missions after that. We've got 4 and 5.
Oh my god, we probably don't even get to kill her in the town hall. Something else is going to happen.
She's probably going to run away and devour more people. Standard villain.
Standard villainy stuff.
But yeah, I like this. The elite unit was a good choice.
Yeah, the elite units. Well, they're so much fun, those models. And I like, that's one of the cool things about the AI, like what I was talking earlier about how you can implement those wombo combos guilt-free.
Yeah.
You can also take the elite unit and, whatever. Yeah. It's like Ollie was trying to decide whether to take the Infinity Angel or one of the Stream Guards. And I was like, well, they're both one model and this is just more powerful. Well, might as well have it.
And the thing is, I was like, I'll take the Stream Guard because it's a shooting attack and it's this and it's that. And it's like, I probably would have gotten a fair few shots off.
Yeah.
And then we'd have been neutered because I basically used her as...
You'd used all your cards.
Meat shield.
Yeah, no, having her endurance there as well was really, really useful.
Yeah, that saved us on a couple of attempts of not losing a model, essentially. And, I mean, to be fair, in this version, losing her, there's no victory points. So, it's just a 5-wound model.
But I'm still sort of at a loss to imagine how they could have balanced all of these scenarios for both solo and co-op and done it
versus.
Well, the versus is only in the skirmish.
No, the Darkness player versus...
Yeah, you can't do that in the campaign mode, though.
Yeah, but
only do that in the skirmish mode.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, the skirmish mode can be against AI or against a player controlling the darkness who still uses all the AI cards and stuff, but then just has some slightly different choices and stuff to make. So that's interesting as well. But we won't go into that because we're not doing that today.
No, but it's just yet more you could do for. I still find it amazing how large that box is. It's basically...
Well, this is one boss of 3 that you get in the Darkness box. Plus, this isn't even all of the Darkness. There was another boss called the Father of the Sun that I didn't even get. So,
although, stretch goal for him. And he does look pretty cool.
He wasn't a stretch goal. He was an add-on.
Add-on. Oh,
which means you pay for him. Whereas, I think all of these were stretch goals. I think. I can't remember. It was long ago.
I think I know what I'm getting for Christmas now.
It was in the works for a long time, this product. Anyway, I think that just about wraps this up for us.
Yeah.
But if you've watched this whole series and you would like to see me and Ollie come back and just play through the last 2 scenarios, I'm sure we can make that happen. So let us know. And also keep an eye on Kickstarter, because when this is airing, I think, depending on when this comes out, 16th of October 2018 is when they're relaunch. I believe they plan to relaunch the Kickstarter for the Edge Dawnfall version 1.6. So if you are interested in this game, I think that's the only way to really get it. You could order it directly from their site, but I know they've sold out of copies now, so you can't do that. So unless you're going to go to the secondhand market or find it new somewhere serendipitously, then you will want to keep an eye on that campaign.
And it's a fun game, so keep a bloody eye on it.
There you go. Ollie's recommending it.
He gives it 3 thumbs up. Mike, hold your hand up. Thank you.
Does that look weird?
Probably.
I'll edit it so it looks weird. But yeah, let us know if you'd like to see the other 2 scenarios, and we will. Otherwise, we'll just play them ourselves off camera. Although I said that about Legacy of Dragonholt, we still haven't done that.
That's mainly because of scheduling issues.
Yeah, no, it's mainly because you haven't painted those finishes.
Oh, I will kick you. I will kick you so hard. Shut up. You wanted white paws on a black model. Do you have any idea how annoying that is to paint?
No, I don't.
It turns out great.
But I can imagine it is. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye.